Ethan had always believed in love, in the kind of devotion that could withstand anything. For years, he had given his heart to Isabella, a woman whose beauty was matched only by the charm that captivated everyone around her. They had made promises, spoken of a future filled with laughter, warmth, and unshakable trust. But trust, as Ethan would learn, was a fragile illusion. Marcus had always been there, lurking in the shadows of their love story. He was wealthy, influential, and dangerously obsessed with Isabella. She saw him as nothing more than an old friend, but Marcus had other plans. He wanted her, and when she refused to see him as anything more, he decided that if he couldn't have her willingly, he would make sure no one else did, especially not Ethan. It started with whispers, rumors planted carefully to cast doubt. Then came the setup. One evening, just as the city lights flickered against the night sky, Ethan was dragged from his apartment by the police. Confused, furious, he demanded to know why. The answer struck him like a blade. He was being accused of grand theft and assault, crimes he hadn't committed. The evidence was damning. Stolen items found in his car, a witness who claimed to have seen him at the scene, and a trail that led directly to him. None of it made sense. Ethan's world crumbled further when Isabella didn't fight for him. She had stood in that cold courtroom, watching as the prosecution painted him as a monster. She hadn't spoken a word in his defense. Instead, when their eyes met, all he saw was uncertainty. Maybe she doubted him, or maybe she had been manipulated. Either way, she didn't stop the gavel from sealing his fate. 15 years in prison. As the cell door slammed shut behind him, Ethan felt something inside him die. The man who had believed in love, in loyalty, in justice. He was gone. In his place, something darker began to take root. Prison was a different world, one that didn't care about innocence or injustice. Ethan learned quickly that survival depended on adaptation. The days blurred into each other, fights, isolation, the constant reminder that he had been abandoned. But anger kept him alive. It burned through the betrayal, shaping him into something harder, something unbreakable. He met an old man, a former con artist who had spent decades behind bars. Unlike the others, he saw something in Ethan, something more than just rage. Revenge isn't about destruction, he told him one night. It's about control. Ethan listened. He learned how to manipulate, how to plan, how to become someone no one would recognize. Fate intervened when a prison riot broke out. Amidst the chaos, Ethan was stabbed. The injury was severe, and by the time the guards restored order, he was declared dead. But he wasn't. A powerful prisoner with outside connections had arranged his escape. Ethan was smuggled out, barely breathing, and taken to a hidden location where his life would change forever. A new identity required a new face. The underground network had its ways, doctors who owed favors, surgeons who asked no questions. The pain was excruciating, but Ethan endured it. Weeks turned into months of healing, of refining the skills he had learned in prison. When he finally looked in the mirror, the man staring back at him was a stranger. The world believed Ethan was dead. But he wasn't gone. He was reborn. And now, he was going back. Not as the broken man they had left behind, but as someone they would never see coming. Ethan returned to the city under a new name, a new face, and a fortune that made people take notice. He was no longer the man who had been cast aside. He was someone powerful, someone untouchable. The first step in his plan was Marcus. It wasn't difficult to gain his trust. Wealth had a way of opening doors, and Marcus, always drawn to power, welcomed him into his world without suspicion. Ethan played the role perfectly, charming, calculating, dangerous in a way that Marcus admired. Slowly, he became indispensable, offering business deals too good to refuse, whispering advice that led Marcus exactly where he wanted him, vulnerable and blind to the trap closing in around him. Then there was Isabella. Seeing her again after all these years was a test of his control. She hadn't changed much, still beautiful, still carrying that same aura of elegance. But there was something else now, a sadness beneath the surface. He approached her carefully, just another stranger in her world, a man who intrigued her but gave nothing away. She was drawn to him, just as she had been drawn to Ethan all those years ago. And this time, he let her fall. The past crept into their conversations, memories resurfacing in ways she couldn't understand. She felt an unexplainable connection to this man she had just met, but there was no reason for it. Ethan made sure of that. He wanted her to question everything, to feel the weight of what she had done, even if she didn't yet know why. Meanwhile, Marcus's empire was crumbling. Every deal Ethan had orchestrated led to disaster. Every secret he uncovered found its way into the wrong hands. The world that Marcus had built on deceit and power was collapsing, and he had no idea who was pulling the strings. But Ethan wasn't done yet. The final blow had to be personal, and for that, he needed Isabella to see the truth. Ethan stood before Isabella, no longer hiding. The moment she realized who he was, her breath caught, her eyes wide with disbelief. Fear, regret, love, every emotion flashed across her face, but he didn't waver. She had to hear the truth from him, had to understand the price of her betrayal. She tried to explain, to say she had been manipulated, that she never stopped loving him, but it didn't matter. Love meant nothing without trust, and she had abandoned him when he needed her most. He wasn't here for her forgiveness. He was here to end this. Marcus was already ruined, his wealth stripped away, his reputation in shambles. But Ethan wanted him to suffer more. He revealed everything, how he had orchestrated the downfall, how he had played them both. Marcus finally saw the face of the man he had destroyed, now standing before him stronger than ever. Panic set in, desperation clouded his judgment. He begged, tried to fight back, but there was nothing left for him. The world had already turned against him. Isabella was left with nothing but truth. She reached for Ethan, hoping for redemption, but he stepped back. He had dreamed of this moment, thought it would bring him peace, but standing there, he realized something. Revenge had taken everything from him, just as betrayal had. Without another word, he walked away, leaving behind the ghosts of his past. He wasn't the same man who had loved Isabella, nor the one who had burned with rage. He was something else now, someone free. And as he disappeared into the night, he knew one thing for certain. This was not an ending. It was a beginning.